the judge for the final hearing.
And
He's already...
Are you able to file summary judgment request for that
Correct.
hearing without that interior appraisal?
Yes, exactly. The summary judgment is based on the fact that we've pled certain things in the pleadings, their failure to answer, their failure to maintain the property. The value of the property goes more to what the lien will be. But so far as us acquiring the lien and having gone through all the steps to notify the property owner, that all is done and is not affected by the value of the appraisal.
And my recollection from memory is that June 5th was a date of some consequence.
June
Is
5th
that
was,
correct?
it is. That is the date that they should have answered the discovery and did not.
And that's today.
Yes.
And what happens if we get to the 11th hour and they've missed all of their legal windows to answer and they suddenly respond in some way? Does that push this sequence back? Are they given some type of a benefit of the doubt in the court's eyes?
The court would give them a chance to, I guess, contest service or to do something to be heard on what they believe are the merits, but it would not change the fact that they're already in default and that they already failed to answer within the time prescribed by law. So what the court usually does in those instances is to make sure that they're not depriving someone of property without due process of law, and it would be incumbent on us as a municipality to show that we have given them every opportunity to answer and that we also serve them in the manner prescribed by law. I'm comfortable that we've done that, but if they were to come in the last hour, they would have a chance to be heard, but they could not unduly stretch out the process or go back to where they would have been had they answered initially.
So service was, I mean, they returned service.
They did not return service. We are required to serve them at the last known address and also any address on file with the Charleston County RMC office. That was done, and they did not respond to it. So once that's sent certified mail, that satisfies the requirements of the statute. So.
And my last question is that there was some debate whether the lien holder, who had been at some point a Seabrook resident, was either deceased or not deceased. Do we know that for sure at this point?
One of the neighbors said that he was deceased. We didn't check to see if there were any funeral records or anything like that, but the last known address that was on the mortgage and that was as a matter of record with the RMC office placed his address in Seabrook. He was served at that address, or his estate was, and if he had a personal representative or any next of kin who would have answered, it would have been on them, the duty would have been on them, not on us as a municipality, to update their address and also to let the court know if there was any successors in interest to the mortgage. So we definitely notified the mortgager at the last known address. We don't have any verification of what happened with his estate, but there was no answer. We're comfortable that we served him in the manner that we needed to, or his estate, and there's not yet been an answer from either.
All right, committee member reports and or council member reports or committee reports. Diana, I'll start at your end.
Nothing from Arts Council. We don't actually start our next season until July. But the Sea Level Rise Committee, we've had the last two meetings we've mainly focused on our written report. And at this point, the committee members are reviewing section drafts. We're in the process of writing them, and we're still aiming for the end of December for a report. End of December, end of August, early September.
John?
Couple things. There's a next Monday there's a council government meeting, and a week from Monday on the 18th there's a CHATS, Charleston Area Transportation Study Committee meeting. I haven't seen the agendas for either of those meetings yet, so nothing to report on them. I'll report next time. However, the current governor has now come out in favor of the completion of 526. That's important because he has a fair amount of sway with the infrastructure bank. That is, he gets to appoint people on the infrastructure bank. So assuming he doesn't change his mind after the primary if he wins, that's very, I think, very significant development, and kind of watching that very closely. Recently, at the last meeting of the Johns Island Task Force, which is a group of residents of Johns Island, representatives of Kiowa and Seabrook Island, as well as the Coastal Conservation League and the Land Trust. A concern was raised over an approval by the City of Charleston Planning Commission of a development of over 200 homes adjacent to the Johns Island Airport. This is bad for a couple of reasons. Obviously, one is we don't need another 200 homes on River Road, snarling up the traffic even worse on that overused and dangerous road. But also it affects the operations of the airport, or it could, because as soon as a development goes up next to an operating airport and gets populated, the next thing that happens is you get petitions from all the citizens complaining that the airport is noisy, dangerous, etc., and restricting the operations of the airport or closing it down. This is actually happening right now at the as development has occurred around the small airport in Mount Pleasant. Along those lines, the mayor has sent a letter to the chairman of the Aviation Authority Board expressing concerns because the Johns Island Airport is an important gateway to Kiowa for all the conferences we have, the PGA Championship, and just general aviation. That airport is pretty important to Kiowa. Also, it at some point, as the CVB mentioned, the Charleston Airport's getting very, very crowded, and at some point, the Johns Island Airport could well serve as a reliever, similar to the way the Hilton Head Airport does for the Savannah Airport. If that development goes in there, that becomes far more difficult because the frequency of flights, the low level of flights and such create a real problem. So that memo has gone out to the chairman of the Aviation Authority, as well as copies to the Judge Rawle at County Council and the Mayor of Charleston. Whether or not it'll have any effect, who knows, but I think those folks do have a lot of influence on what happens and really need to start thinking about a little bit down the road as to what effect putting a development right next to the Johns Island Airport might have, not just from traffic, but also from a utilization of the airport. Last but not least, Rusty had reported a bit on the Parkway study. One of the things we'll be doing, and by the early indications, and we don't have final results yet, of course, are that the structure of the Parkway seems to be in pretty good shape, which is good news. That means if it turns out to be true, the cost of refinishing the Parkway, repaving, and doing whatever else is necessary will be somewhat less. When we get to that point, when we start looking for an actual re-engineering of the Parkway and put that out to bid, one of the things that will be considered is the results of the sea level rise committee, because that we don't want to redo a parkway that is likely to flood shortly after it's done. So that will be taken into account. The Beachwalker Drive project, the mayor's having discussions with the partners regarding what land they may be willing to contribute to allow us to expand Beachwalker Drive down at the end of Beachwalker Drive by the county park and the timbers and the new development that they might be doing on the beach. Once that information is available, we'll be working with the partners and putting together an RFP to get a redesign of that end of the parkway. And so we won't actually obviously be doing any construction until the season is over, but that's something we definitely need to address, given the nature of the traffic on the parkway, the effect it's having on our residents at Inlet Cove in particular, and also the timbers. That's all I have.
Chris?
Next Wednesday in this room, we'll have the Disaster Awareness Day. We're hosting the Seabrook Island and Kiowa jointly. We're going to try to have some fun with it. We're doing it a little bit different than the last few years. We'll have some raffles that we've had, 3 different panels. I know Stephanie stepped out just as I was going to give her credit for coming up with some nice slides and some good music. And afterwards, we'll provide free wine. So
Should get a crowd.
hopefully we'll get a crowd for both parts, not just the second half. So, that's all.
With Chairman Gilmore's departure, we have a vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I've attempted to solicit people who are willing to serve with a notable lack of success. If anybody knows of anybody who is willing to serve on the board, let Stephanie know.
We have no candidates?
I thought I had 2 so far. Their enthusiasm seems to be waning.
How, I know on paper that meets on a regular basis.
Well,
In reality, how often?
It's scheduled to meet on a
But-
regular basis. In
But they
fact,
only
it
when
meets
they have
about 6
things,
times a year,
about 6 times a year?
more or less.
Okay. And they're never that long a meeting, so.
Typically not.
Okay. Yeah, we do need a replacement, so if there's anybody out there that knows somebody that would be, I mean, it's not an easy job. I mean, they do get some tough decisions, but it's not a time-consuming job.
And you don't have to be required to have any planning experience. We will train you, just a little 6-hour training course, but other than that,
Need common sense and a thick skin.
right, common sense.
Would it be easier to get
That's it.
somebody to join planning and maybe talk to planning and get somebody from planning to move to BZA and then bring somebody into planning?
A swap, a trade,
Well, I'm just thinking it might be easier
I'm
to
not
get
entirely
someone to
sure
join planning. I don't know.
permissible.
I don't
Well, you can, but I think who's on planning probably enjoys planning.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to switch down to.
All right,
BZA.
well,
I don't, the only thing I can tell you is that when I left the planning commission, there were like 7 people vying for that spot. Whereas it seems like takes a little bit longer to get somebody to go on the BZA.
okay. All right, because Randy's now gone, right? And
Yes.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Okay.
He's
All
living
right.
on Seabrook now.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Oh, one other thing I want to add, if you recall, a couple of months ago, Mayor Tecklenburg and County Council Chair Rawl had established the Johns Island Growth Management Committee. We had had a first meeting about 2 months ago, and it's been a long time for a second meeting to come about, but there is going to be a second meeting that's been scheduled for this month, I believe on the 26th. It's at the same place as the last one, which is the Berkeley Electric office on Maybank. So next month I'll let you know what transpires, but it's been almost 2 months or 6 weeks or so between meetings, so we'll see what happens at this one. I'm looking forward to it.
One other thing I forgot about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just for those of you that weren't able to attend the candidates meeting the other day, both candidates were asked their opinion on both the completion of 526 and the completion of a Cross Island Parkway. Candidate Jenny Honeycutt was in favor of both. Candidate Councilman Quayle was against both. So they were very clear in their positions.
All right, citizens' comments. Do I have anyone? And if so, please approach the podium. Give us your name and address.
Wendy Kulik, 38 Marsh Edge Lane. Council was good enough to listen to concerns last month, even though it really didn't fall under your area of responsibility, concerning what would happen since the fire district had been promised land at no cost while Station 4 was being replaced, and that land was not available. And I was just wondering whether there was any update that you're aware of. Again, I recognize you don't technically have a role in it, but you were good enough to be concerned, because it is a public safety issue. And just like, you know, you tried to work out things with Beach Patrol, which is certainly an important asset to the island, I think it's also important to make sure that our citizens remain safe. Thank you.
All right, any other citizens' comments? All right, with that, there is no executive session, so if there's no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
If you hear anything back from the,
It's amazing.